prioritizing the right work items is important over there.
Okay, no, I agree. Absolutely, having the right priorities is very important. I guess the takeaway message is communicate openly. From Scrum Ceremonies, receiving feedback, to breaking silos, we discuss it all. But make sure you stay till the end, because we also talk about what success really looks like for a Scrum team. Agility doesn't begin with having processes or tools, but it begins with having the right people in place. And when you have the right people in place, your organization will begin to flourish. Welcome to today's episode of Talk Agile to Me, where we talk about bottom-up transformations and the impact agility has on a Scrum team. My name is Karthik, and I'm one of the Agile coaches here at ALDI DX. And today, I'm joined by my friend Keshav, who's one of the developers. And I'll leave Keshav to introduce himself.
Thank you so much for having me over. I'm Keshav. I'm with ALDI DX for the last 2.5 years, working in a Scrum team as a Frontend Developer.
Today's topic is about bottom-up transformations and the impact agility has on a Scrum team. And I couldn't think of a better person to be having this conversation with, because you as a developer working directly within Scrum teams, I think you bring the right knowledge and the right experience to this topic. So I would love to hear more from you about this. Without further ado, let's dive in. Mm-hmm. Now, one of the key things I want to discuss today is the impact agility has not just on teams, but on the entire organization. And in order to do that, you need to have the right processes, the right people, the right segments, and the right mindset in place to ensure that value is delivered from start to finish. When you think of that in your experience, how important do you think that impact is?
It has a very huge impact on my daily life and also as a team as well. It usually starts with collecting work items we've received as a team from our stakeholder feedback, looking into that, prioritizing it in our sprint planning, scoping it, understanding that, creating an end goal out of it, and delivering value at the end of the sprint to our customers. So I feel it's really important, and it does have a very high impact that way.
You would describe it as a life cycle of Scrum where it begins from collecting items to work on within a sprint,
yes,
making sure that your backlog is filled, and then sprint planning, going through the sprint, and in turn the sprint review, closing it out with the sprint retro.
Yes, also prioritizing the right work items is important over there.
Okay, no, I agree. Absolutely, having the right priorities is very important. Now, this brings us to the first topic of today, which is ceremonies. Now, you mentioned sprint planning, you talked about sprint reviews, we talked about other Scrum ceremonies. Now, I'm curious to hear from your perspective as a developer, what would you say are your two most important or valuable Scrum ceremonies and why?
This is going to be a very biased answer. And again, I feel this also depends whom you ask within the Scrum team. But from my perspective, I feel that a sprint review and sprint planning is very important Scrum ceremonies for me. It is during sprint reviews is where we as a team showcase the iteration of a product that we've developed. That is where we get to hear the stakeholder feedback firsthand, and that is where we collect a lot of work items. This in turn actually feeds into the sprint planning, wherein you collectively sit and try to prioritize the right work items and then try to build a scope out of it so that at the end of this next sprint you have something that can be delivered to the stakeholder. And then this actually creates a loop which actually helps you build an evolving product.
I would say my favorite ceremony would be the sprint retrospective. Obviously, it goes without saying that for Agile coaches and for Scrum Masters, this is the go-to ceremony where we get to work directly with the teams firsthand to help them and guide them on items that either worked well or didn't work well during the sprint. Topics like how was the collaboration within the teammates? How was the communication? How was the working status? Were there any impediments, et cetera, et cetera? So focusing on those type of things sort of helps you build the right culture within the team, and also ensuring that when you host a retro, having a safe space is very important. So when a safe space is provided, that is an opportunity for individuals and teams to sort of come together and share their thoughts and their feedback openly within those retros, to then be able to inspect and adapt in the right manner. If you like this video so far, make sure to hit that subscribe button. For the next topic, we're going to be discussing breaking down silos. You work in a Scrum team, and I think you more than anyone would understand the devastating impact working in silos can have, especially on individuals and on teams. I would love to hear your perspective on this topic, and if you've had any real-time experiences on this, would love to hear your thoughts on it.
Within a Scrum team, that's really important, that everyone's aware of what every other person's doing. And the way that we address this by creating a transparency into what each of us are doing individually and how does it contribute to the iteration. And at the same time, we also make sure that we have open communication. Everyone chips in or chimes in what's working for them, what's not working for them. Is there something that we need to address? And that is how, because everyone's over there discussing everything, you get to understand what's happening, what's going right, what do we need to improve. And since everyone has that transparency over there, you actually come out of the silo of working individually and then start collectively working over there.
I think utilization of boards as well to visualize your work would be something that teams use. That's good to know. I guess the takeaway message is communicate openly, transparently, make sure that there's trust within the teams. This brings us to the next topic, bottom-up transformations, and what impact does it have on the organization? When you think about delivering value to the end customer, the experience couldn't get better than that, I think. How would you describe, working in, you said we're working Agile over here within the teams as well. How much of an impact do you think the bottom-up transformation has on the organization? Being an Agile coach, working with the rest of the organization, working with, different teams, I sort of get a bird's eye view on different array of topics. But when it comes to the approach from a team and pushing that above and the impact that it has not just on the team but on the entire organization, how do you think, as a team you put that together and you deliver, that value within the organization?
When you start working in an agile way, you create a ripple effect wherein other teams also start looking into those, and then since everyone starts to work agile, it kind of builds up from there. So if you have the bottom layer working agile, it just translates into moving the same thing higher up, and then your entire organization becomes agile that way.
Thanks for sharing that, and I completely agree as well. As I said before, I think when we look into transformations as well, obviously both aspects are important. You need to have bottom up and top down, and somewhere in that sort of experience you meet in the between. Obviously the key element is when you work bottom up, that's where the magic happens. You get to work in teams that actually deliver value sprint after sprint, that then forms into a product after a certain stage that can be delivered to a customer. And when you multiply this across different teams, different areas, different departments, as you said, it creates that benefit and value. And I completely agree as well when you look at organizations. Now in this topic, we're going to dive into what does success look like for a Scrum team. Now Keshav, as a developer, as part of a team, you have your own defined parameters of what success looks like as an individual and as part of a team. Do you care to share some of those?
As a developer in the Scrum team and collectively as a team as well, I feel delivering an iteration of a product is important, and that is how we would measure success. and to measure success also collectively, I would say delivering value to the customers, and delivering value to the customers is what I feel is success to us in an agile team.
As an agile coach, looking at Scrum teams that deliver value, I think success looks a little bit different to me, or has a few more layers added to it. How I would define success is when individuals and teams are self-organizing and have been empowered to the right extent to be able to function autonomously, to be able to facilitate their own ceremonies and work on their own topics without too much external guidance. To me, that's how I would define success in my world. When you think and talk about value as well, the second thing would be how that team that works perfectly can then deliver value to the customers. And the focus would also be on ensuring that the value is being delivered organically, so that it should be an organic growth. And that is sort of how I would define success, when teams understand the basics and the principles of agility, the importance of Scrum, and in effect, team members become ambassadors of Scrum and agility to help spread the word. Thank you, Keshav, for sharing your insights with us, and for also talking about the importance of working in an agile team and the impact you as an individual and your teams have on the wider organization.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us. Our mission here on this channel is to share insights with you behind the scenes on how we work at ALDI DX. So if you're interested, make sure you check out the channel and hit that subscribe button to stay updated.